It's been almost 10 years since we received the release of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, and we've still been struggling to pick apart the clues that have been left behind. Today, I want to share some evidence that potentially puts these clues to rest. But before I open the floodgates, let's review the story of what brought us here. In September of 2015, the Game Theorist hosted a live stream in collaboration with several FNAF creators to close the book on some of FNAF 4's lore. But little did they know, Scott Cawthon was watching the stream the entire time. And the events that unfolded during that live stream created a dynamic shift in our understanding of FNAF 4, echoes that still resonate in our conversations to this day. You see, he started to update scottgames.com, a website that he typically used to drop teasers for his upcoming games. But this time, Scott was dropping subtle leads to tell the theorists where to look. What is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. In the FNAF 4 minigame, why would the tiny toy Chica be missing her beak? 4 games, 1 story. It was at this moment, these 3 bombshells served as the main inspiration for one of the most iconic theories of the franchise, Dream Theory. The idea that the events of the previous games were all a part of the child's imagination. And while this concept has become obsolete with the release of newer entries, the important question we need to ask is, were these clues originally pointing towards Dream Theory, or were they pointing towards something else? What is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. In the live stream, this clue played a crucial role in the conception of Dream Theory, and it would only be further expanded upon when special guest Alex Faciani turned to the comments for feedback.
Scott has not addressed
Here's an interesting thought from Red Gamer Warrior.
Okay, Red Gamer Warrior says...
Who's also just Gamer Warrior 66 on Twitter.
Okay.
What if the kid thought Purple Guy was stuffing people in suits when he was just helping him get into them? We're gonna go with this, like, maybe an entire game is just an imaginary scenario created by a little boy.
But even though this idea was originally meant to support Dream Theory, after 10 years, it just kinda stuck, repurposed as a way to say the crying child never actually saw anything dangerous and was just misinterpreting his fears the whole time. But what if I were to tell you that we had it all wrong? You see, we can actually prove that this moment is not what Scott is referring to, because we've seen the same word choice before in the game description of FNAF 4. In the last chapter of the Five Nights at Freddy's story, you must once again defend yourself against the core 4 and even worse things that lurk in the shadows. Playing as a child whose role is yet unknown, you must safeguard yourself until 6 AM by watching the doors, as well as warding off unwanted creatures that may venture into your closet or onto the bed behind you. This clue was not meant to point us to the minigames, it was pointing us towards the gameplay. And we can verify this even further. While the Toy Chica clue proceeded with the phrase, "in the FNAF 4 minigame," this clue we're analyzing doesn't. To me, the writing is on the wall here. What was seen by the crying child in the shadows are the nightmare animatronics. We know from Sister Location that this was all a hallucinogenic experiment, but the crying child perceived it as a nightmare because as a child, he isn't able to tell the difference. For some of you, this might sound a bit familiar, because it's the exact same premise of didophobia. Rory, who's been stuck in the mind of a child, believes the animatronics are just nightmares, and because he's been trapped down in that bedroom at such a young age, he's easily fooled by the psychological manipulation of his hallucinations. The first thing Rory saw on the top sheet of paper was a date. It was a date just a month after his 7th birthday. Subject continues to react with fear, Rory read aloud, to what he perceives to be creatures. Fear level 9. Rory knew what perceives meant. It meant that his brain was telling him something, and given the way the entry was written on the clipboard, whatever his brain was telling him wasn't necessarily the truth. This is how a child's mind would easily misunderstand this experiment as a nightmare. Of course, FNAF 4 still ends up becoming a dream, since Michael has visions of the crying child's memories following him home from his night shift, and we can prove that FNAF 4 is a dream with none other than hide and seek. In case anyone is unfamiliar, Hide and Seek is a story from Fazbear Frights that shares many connections with the Afton family. Our protagonist Toby is a younger brother that lives with his father and older brother. His older brother Connor is known for two things: being a bully to Toby and having a hobby of watching TV. But if this doesn't ring any alarm bells for you yet, listen to this. In the story, Toby comes across a paranormal experience and is desperate to prove to himself that he is dreaming. And the way he does this is by checking if the numbers on his clock are scrambled, a telltale sign for people that experience lucid dreaming. Not only is this a super obscure reference that goes nowhere, but it's a direct callback to every night of FNAF 4, where we see the alarm clock numbers scramble at 6 a.m. But get this, in the story, the numbers don't actually move for Toby because it was all real, serving as yet another example of a younger brother misunderstanding his reality. Now, let's turn our attention to the next clue. In the FNAF 4 minigame, there's a secret playground area that you can find on your walk back home. At the playground, you see a girl with her toy collection, resembling toy versions of the animatronics we see in FNAF 2. It's a detail nobody even realized had any relevance until Scott pointed it out. But at the same time, this area has a very similar tone to the clearing from Midnight Motorist, an off-road section that, once discovered, reveals the true nature of what is really going on here. So why would the tiny toy Chica be missing her beak? It's a reference to FNAF 2. When toy Chica starts the night, she isn't missing her beak. It's only when she starts moving that she loses it. So what if I were to tell you that, just like FNAF 2, the reason she's missing her beak is because this toy was moving on its own? And while this may sound crazy at first, think about this. You see, one of the big debates at the time had to do with the Fredbear plush. What's his deal? I mean, at first he seemed like an imaginary friend, made up by the crying child, but by sister location, it suggested the Fredbear plush was being controlled by William. It's a camera system, further supported by the Lonely Freddy story from Fazbear Frights, toys made with the purpose of following around your kid. Now, let's go back to the perspective of someone from 2015. At first glance, you assume this is all happening in this kid's head, but once you see there's another toy following around this kid too, you suddenly come to the realization. These toys were designed this way, as selling robot toys would be the perfect cover-up for Afton to spy on his child. It's almost like something out of Toy Story, where the toys basically freeze up as soon as their child has eyes on them, the same way animatronics simulate movement in all these games. I mean, look no further than Plush Trap, a toy we see being used as a tool in William's experiments, but then out on the street, some kid is walking around with one like it's their best friend. We even see this Plush Trap chaser being sold by the company in the story out of stock. But doesn't it seem extreme that Afton would do this to the whole neighborhood? Well, actually no. This would be in line with Afton's characterization, because we have something to compare it to, the sister location animatronics. Both Circus Baby's Pizza World and Entertainment and Rentals were designed with the covert agenda of capturing children. Afton is clearly willing to take insane leaps to accomplish his scientific ambitions, using entertainment as a front to get them approved by any means necessary. So, I'm sure that some of you have noticed a pattern by now. These two clues we've discussed seemingly serve the same exact purpose as the FNAF 4 sister location Easter eggs. And I won't deny, this may be a bit influenced by confirmation bias, but that doesn't mean this line of thinking isn't warranted, because it's what Scott told us in his interview with Dawko.
But the Final Fantasy Phrase 4, it kind of went a little too broad. It cast its net too wide for interpretation. I guess that's the best way to say it. You know, it went too broad for interpretation, and that left people unsatisfied. You know, because whereas the other ones, yeah, there were mysteries. 4 ended up just too mysterious to the point where you really couldn't, you know, there was no real way to figure out what was going on. And it left people unsatisfied. And like I said, with jumping from 3 to 4, I knew that I had to go in and straighten that out. It's like, people aren't really happy with this. I need to make another game. I need to kind of ground this again, not necessarily in reality, but I need to ground it in kind of storytelling again. And really lay this down with what's going on.
You put some things in Sister Location to ground out the story of FNAF 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's analyze this. It seems to me like he tried to tell us what was going on during FNAF 4, but it didn't work. So we used Sister Location as a way to lay down what we couldn't figure out. The reality of it is, we're in a position where we need to work backwards and recontextualize the clues with what we now know about the story. And this brings me to our last clue. 4 games, 1 story. This is the one that always felt weird to me, because at first, it seems like common knowledge, but after interpreting the context retrospectively, it really does feel like it was meant to dismiss dream theory. As we see in the live stream, this concept was initially mentioned by MadPat, but the intriguing part is, this wasn't even the clue that tipped him off. It was the shadows one. We can even see the moment he silently formulates the idea right after seeing it. And what's even more important to consider is that dream theory started off exclusive to FNAF 2.
This is weird, okay? Yeah. But it's one of the things that immediately jumps to my mind. Is it possible, again, this is completely off the wall, is it possible that FNAF 2 didn't actually happen?
So what does this mean for 4 games, 1 story? Well, shortly after MadPat suggested FNAF 2 wasn't real, Scott revealed that final clue. This gives us the time frame we need to determine that this wasn't just some vague statement, it was a direct response. The truth is, these 4 games all tell the same story, and having certain games be entirely dedicated to telling fabricated events wouldn't be a part of one coherent narrative. This wouldn't be telling one story, it would be telling 2. And while I do want to praise MadPat's ingenuity and outside-the-box thinking for the time, I just can't bring myself to say dream theory was the original intention, especially when you consider Scott's personal statements on the matter. But while I may have not been convinced of dream theory, these hints still serve as a snapshot in time for some of the most divisive yet compelling perspectives. And it might just be that maybe they aren't so mysterious after all.